I mean, I read The Wheel of Time. It was the first English series that I picked up when I came to Canada.
Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Belgian Jasper. If this is your first time in the channel, hit subscribe right now.
Evgeniy from Red Cain, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Usually I talk to people before a release. Now we get to speak about a week-ish after the album came out. So what does that mean for you? Like, what's your experience right now? Are you still full in that crazy cycle of an album release, or are you able to kind of take a step back and assess what's going on right now?
First of all, thanks for having me on the show, Jasper. It's good to meet you. I'm excited. To answer your question, I think it's a mix of both. And I'm sorry to kick you off with like a very neutral answer, but
No problem.
It is a mix of both. We're still very much in the post-launch hype. There's a lot of work to be done to make sure that everybody who wants and needs to see the album does see it. There's a lot of social media presence. We're lucky to have a number of messages from fans and then various publications that are always coming our way. So we're kind of like have our hands everywhere. But it's also really nice. We actually sat down last weekend after the launch and had a quiet beer with the band, which was, it doesn't happen very so often when you're making an album. So it was great. I think we're at a nice stable level of sanity right now after the album release. So it's only up from here, hopefully.
Let's start maybe with the most important thing, which is the music. You guys bring, even if I think I saw statements from you saying like, oh, this is a little bit more of a stripped down approach from a music perspective for us. Nevertheless, a stripped down music for you is still, or from you, is still layered, is still complex. There's a lot going on. There's twists and turns. How do you go about, writing that? Because, a lot of music from a lot of bands gets started with somebody playing a tune on a piano or noodling away on an acoustic guitar. And although there are some elements in the songs that have a very straightforward melody that are taking the front, there are some other parts that you can it's almost impossible to imagine that was once just a tune on a piano. So how does that go for you?
So this is not a paid advertisement, but we use Guitar Pro as a software for writing, and it is absolutely brilliant. We've been using it for every single release. I've personally been using it for like 10 plus years. It helps us arrange all of the different tracks, and sometimes even before we get to the mixing phase, we get like 20 plus tracks of different instruments, and this is just the main skeleton pieces of the song, right? So like you pointed out before, for us, stripped down is a little bit different than most other bands. I think I'm guilty of that because of my classical music background, and which is way past behind me at this point. But when I was growing up and I went to music school, the pieces that you play by all the classical composers, Bach, Paganini, Chopin, everything, they all have a complexity that metal really embraces. And so I embraced it too when I started writing metal. And it's just really nice to have music that people can listen to over and over and discover new things. It's always been a calling card of Red Cain. It's been mentioned a few times. We're happy to hear it. And so when we do write, it's always kind of an iterative process. So I would start with a skeleton. We usually start with an idea or a riff, or sometimes it's like a vocal phrase that I just have in my head, and we build the entire song around. Other times it's kind of a visual or thematic concept that we really want to hammer home, and then we start like evolving that and putting everything in place that just like supports it and pushes it out, all of that. So the tooling we use helps us do that. A lot of our songs I mean, some people call them bloated. You know, modern metal, modern music
Call them
requires
ambitious.
a lot of depth. Ambitious, yeah, that's what we say. I don't think that's ever been an issue for us in the previous releases where we have a song that just like has a ridiculous amount of stuff and you can't hear it. We're lucky to work with sound engineers. That our friend Tyler Corbett is one, absolutely, that manages to fit all that in. So for this record specifically, I think we cut down the number of tracks from like 80 to 40 or something like that. So it was still a significant step. We also have a fantastic guitarist now with Sam Rideout that was able to just like on the spot almost come up with some killer riffs and track them immediately, and it didn't require a lot of input from let's say me to like point him in the right direction. He just kind of nailed them from the very beginning. So for us, what it meant is we were able to do a very organic record. So he was like sending riffs my way, and we were arranging them, and it came out a lot more organically than almost like mathematically, as you tend to do when you have 80 tracks to work with.
I've seen some live footage of you guys, but I've not seen you actually live. I've not had a chance to experience you guys on a stage. So help me understand, you know, even 40 tracks with 5 people requires either the help of some onstage magic, or you have to strip songs down even further if you want to, you know, play them in a somewhat manageable way on a stage. So when you are then thinking you've got this product now and you've got this big album, as you are transforming that to a live show, like just purely from a music perspective, what does that look like for you guys? Are you trying to stay as close as possible to the album experience with the help of some tracks and so on, or is a live show yet another version of the band?
I think we, at this point, lean toward the latter. We do try to stay true to the material, but the underpinning of all of the studio magic is live performance and the ability of us as musicians to pull it off.
Right.
So we always rely on the fact that everything that we play on stage is the key pieces that you can hear and consume, even without the extras, let's say. So we do use backing tracks, and we have extras in the backing tracks very often. We do strip them down because it's virtually impossible to have everything that goes in the album on the stage. And we focus very, very strongly on the musicians themselves and what we can deliver. So I think in that sense, when we play live, it's still a different yet recognizable product. We've also been known to, I mean, like most bands, we do a lot of spontaneous stuff on stage, like change the solos around or extend songs, and so it's still something with this album specifically that we're experimenting with, given that we haven't played a ton of shows yet. But we've had success in the past, you know, playing locally and otherwise with this kind of setup.
So when you say like, we'd like to, you know, still have our spontaneity and some organic feel when we play live, which obviously the more tracks you use or have to use, the smaller the room for that is. Your classical music past, if you will, has that then stayed with influencing you on how to write music and using certain motives, or is there that burning desire, although that will take away all your ability to be organic on stage, but is bringing music like this to life with a full-blown orchestra and maybe even more of a stage show, is that like the bucket list item number one?
No, I don't think it's number one. I think it's nice to do, and I've seen a lot of bands do that successfully. But I think, again, there's a certain stage in a band's career where that becomes possible or even necessary.
Right.
I think we're still very much in the stage of ramping up the rock and roll piece of it, and being able to put on a show that the fans walk away from being like, holy shit, like that was a memorable one, right? So that's what I love as a audience member and someone who appreciates music from bands that I can see. So I think for us, like, this album specifically was more in line of our overall movement toward a more effective live performance, a more hard-hitting live performance, less dilution to all the other I don't say technical stuff, but creating an atmosphere through additional content rather than creating an atmosphere through performance. Focus on fewer things that you do extremely well. So it was a first step for us. The other two albums that we wrote were very much in very expansive kind of epic power prog territory, and it was really nice to be able to do that and flex our muscles as songwriters. But at this point in our career, we're trying to evolve towards something that's more punchy, if you want to say it that way.
Are there in your music, given that it's a pretty vivid cocktail, if you will, and I assume that you very much let the story, you already mentioned earlier, like a concept story, to kind of give you that guidance. As long as it fits the concept, anything goes? Or when you're working on songs, do you draw lines in the sand where you go, like, if somebody comes up with a crazy idea, are there things that, like, sorry, this is just never going to fit our blueprint? Or
No, I get you. No, I think there's nothing that is rejected. Again, it's difficult to say. I think at this point, after the first two albums especially, we've got a pretty clear understanding of what a Red Cain track sounds like. And it's still it's an organic understanding, and I probably would find it really hard to verbalize what those things are. But we kind of have it.
But it just sounds like us or not, in a way.
And there's certain musical things that we like to do.
For sure.
There's certain structures that we like to use. There's kind of vocal lines that make an appearance here and there. So from that perspective, I think when we write, we gravitate toward that. But I've always had, as part of my vision for the band from the beginning, nothing is off the table. And I mean, if you look at our past records and our influences in general, we've had stuff that ranges from like ballads to very poppy Amaranth style stuff, to gothic rock, to classic rock, to thrash now, to death metal. So we've kind of rotated through all this cocktail of genres, and I think it's awesome to be able to do that. And I think a lot of bands can only do that at the beginning of their career, before they're kind of shackled a bit by the fans that have loved them for a specific
by your own brand. For sure.
Yeah, there you go. So for us, like, we had a lot of fun with the first few records, and even with this one, while keeping that little thread of this is Red Cain alive. And we do kind of like an informal check every time we complete a song. It's like, does it sound Red Cain? And if people are kind of like, oh yeah, okay. I show it to my grandma, actually. My grandma, she doesn't understand my music, and she always says it's too complicated and everything, but she can tell when a good song is a good song, or it's our song.
Come, let me show you the light, the way of the
Everything is big about this album. Let's just call out the beautiful artwork as well, which is definitely a bonus. But go into the story. So people that are fans of the band will know. People watching this interview and then discovering you guys for the first time, will find out that Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time series has been a big influence on this album. That's what the concept is built on. It's a very expansive world. Those are very thick and many books. So there's lots of inspiration to draw from. You mentioned before, like, bands can become shackled or limited by their own brand, if you will. That is also a potential, double-edged sword when it comes to concepts, right? Like it's bands that all of a sudden become labeled as, well, if you are now the Wheel of Time band, well, what if you just wanted to make another Smoke on the Water? Then all of a sudden you're not allowed to do that anymore. So as you are approaching this, like, first of all, quick question. Should we expect you to explore this world more in next albums?
I don't think it's in the plans currently. I think there's a ton there to explore, but this is a passion project in a lot of ways. This was me and us as a band going back to our roots. And I mean, I read The Wheel of Time. It was the first English series that I picked up when I came to Canada. That shows the longest one, obviously. But it was in that way, it was an homage to that. I always wanted to see more music come from there because of the quality of the writing. So it was something I've been
and definitely underserved in music for sure compared to some other similar series.
So at present there are no plans. I feel like we've done enough. We've achieved what we wanted to achieve with this, and it was we're looking forward. I mean, there's even the concept piece. We've done 3 concept albums. We're not by no means tied to concept albums, and we've tried to strike a balance between having every track being able to be consumed by itself without having to super close references to the source content. So I think we'll keep heading that direction and explore something else next time.
Yeah, but when you were working on this one, because given that it's such a passion project and you're such a fan, does that then, when you are in fact writing the lyrics to these songs, is that then an extremely big task, tackling something that you love so much and there's maybe a lot of self-imposed weight on your shoulders? Or because you are a fan and you know the world like the back of your hand, it went pretty easy? Like, I remember an interview with Bruce Dickinson who said, like, I would one day love to make an album about the Lord of the Rings, but I don't think we could do it justice in one album because it's massive. And then the Lord of the Rings is peanuts compared to everything that's been written by Robert Jordan. So, I can imagine that as a fan, that must also be extremely stressful.
There was that for sure. You do feel the weight of it, and throughout the years I've connected with other fans of the Wheel of Time, and I know how passionate they are. And it's just such a well-regarded universe that to make a bad album and to misinterpret things is definitely a very, very big misstep.
And they will tell you.
I do know it quite well, though. Yeah, and they will tell you. Yeah. So far, nobody's told us. So I think I may have succeeded with the content itself. But yeah, we did talk about this, and I think we did a lot of research. I think a selling point is that we touched on certain things that were not extremely well detailed in the novels, which is the side of the Forsaken and their motivations and how that whole element developed. So that gave us some creative leeway. But I feel pretty confident that we know the material enough, and that when we touch upon the material, we try to do justice quite well.
You have now this album to promote, and so hopefully we will see a lot of opportunities for you to promote that album, and you have to bring some of these songs and probably bring in some older songs as well. So everybody watching this video, we're halfway in the year only, so for the foreseeable future, now that the album is out, what can we keep our fingers crossed for? What should we keep our eyes open for?
We're looking at a best of compilation. So like you said, there's a lot of tracks from the past albums we'd like to bring forward. So that is likely something that's on the horizon. And then we're going to focus quite hard on live shows. It's been a while. We've got a lineup that can play them. So we are aiming for the right targets, I think is the best way that I can put it. There's been a lot of interest by fans around the world geographically in places we haven't been, and we'd love to go there. In Europe, it's a big one. So I think we're going to put a lot of effort into satisfying both sides of the equation. Studio work is important, and we're at a stage in our career where we want to bring back some of the older stuff and give kind of a total package to the fans that are here or new fans, different cocktail. And then, of course, the live show is continually evolving. You're not really a musician if you can't do it live. We firmly believe in that, and we really want to interact with our fans face to face. There's nothing quite like it. So, keep an eye out for that. We're working hard toward it.
All right, I'll keep my fingers crossed to see any announcements of shows, because obviously I want to make my experience go beyond live footage on YouTube. And so I look forward to seeing you guys play on a stage soon. Evgeniy, thank you so much for taking some time today and sharing a little bit more about how this mammoth of an album came to be and the thought process that went into it. I really do appreciate it. And I hope that this launch cycle prolongs quite a bit still, and that you still are caught in this roller coaster. But yeah, make time to have some beers with the band at times and crank up the insanity levels a little bit. We'll keep our eyes open.
I mean, that's why you're in the band, right?
I mean, come on, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you want to celebrate. So,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. Awesome.
Sometimes it's hard to do that, but that's, yeah.
For sure. Evgeniy, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll keep our eyes open for all the announcements that you're going to throw our way.
I appreciate it, Jasper. Thank you very much.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.